Hey friends, it's Justin and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have some brand new inspiration to share with you using the new Petals and Purrs collection from Catherine Pooler Designs. I am going to be pulling in the brand new Wildflower stamp set and coordinating die set, the Party Yellow enamel dots, and the Glitz Shimmer to bring a card together that I think really gets the vibes captured for this release. I have gone ahead and put a piece of my favorite white Catherine Pooler cardstock into my Misty, trimmed down to A2 size, and I am going to pull the two leaf and stem images from the Wildflower stamp set to arrange onto my pre-cut paper. Now, I am going to be making 4 total flowers to prepare for this card, even though the final image only has 3. So I'm going to use a mass production technique since I'm going to have these already preloaded into my Misty. It makes it really easy to get multiples, so I'm going to start by stamping them out using the Mardi Gras ink. I do love how juicy the Catherine Pooler ink pads are, so it makes it really easy to cover up the entirety of these images and stamping them out using my Misty. Once I'm satisfied with the impression of my first panel, I swap out the panel and I use a new A2 size piece of favorite white cardstock by Catherine Pooler, and I use those stem pieces already in place on my Misty door to stamp out another pair in Mardi Gras ink. Now moving on to our next image, I am going to use the 2 different flower top pieces that are included in this set, and I'm going to position them in my Misty on top of my cardstock, and then once I'm happy with where they fit, I'm going to close my door, pick them up, and stamp it out with some Tiara ink for our flower tops. I really love the Tiara color. I think it's such a perfect yellow. It's part of the suggested color palette for this collection, and I think that Catherine Pooler has curated a wonderful collection of colors to use. Now, swapping out the panels, I'm going to be able to get that next set of impressions in the exact same spot as the first panel, since these stamps are already loaded onto my Misty door. So I'm going to grab that Tiara ink, stamp them down once again, and get that wonderful impression. Once I have my flower tops all ready to go, we can now move on and position the center of the flowers, closing our Misty door and picking them back up. And then I am going to use some different colored inks for the flower tops. I'm going to use Rockin' Red, which is of course part of the suggested color palette with this collection. And I'm going to stamp out that Rockin' Red flower centers onto each of my flowers. They just look so nice with these red centers. I love the little texture bits that are included in these stamps. And like I've been saying, I love that I can just sort of swap the panels, and I'm going to be able to really easily make sure that the centers are stamped for my second panel. It makes this mass production really, really easy. I love that Catherine Pooler stamps are designed that you can have these sort of techniques that work and make your card making process go even simpler. Now, I did snip apart the coordinating dies, of course, off camera, and I'm arranging them onto my panel. I'm only going to show you the arrangement of one. I don't think you need to see me do both of them. But I'm going to put my dies into place, and then I will tack it down with a little bit of 1-inch mint tape to help hold those dies into place. Now, I recommend getting a nice amount of mint tape to secure the die cuts in place. The last thing you want to do is, after spending all of this time getting all of your stamps all nice and positioned, is accidentally cutting them off center and having to start from scratch again. So a little bit of extra security with your mint tape does go a long way. I mean, don't cover the entirety of the die cut, but a little extra bits does help secure it in place so that it doesn't shift around at all when you're doing the die cutting. So once I have all of my mint tape into place, I do process it through my die cutting machine. This is a Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and it does a perfect job getting all of my images cut up. So I'm going to take all of the different stem pieces and flower top pieces and start to arrange them onto my glass mat to see how exactly I want these flowers to look, because I've got the 2 different styles of stems and the 2 different styles of flower tops, and I think that I've found the way that I want them to go the best. I'm trying to go with how the flower tops seem to curve with a certain flower stem, and so I think I have found the pair that works best. Using some liquid adhesive, I'm going to adhere the flower top on top of the flower stem piece, and then I'm going to use just a little bit of pressure to get it nicely into place. And then what I will do is I'm going to do the same technique for all 4 of the stems that we have. Only going to show you 2 of them, so this portion isn't too repetitive, but this does give you a good idea that if you're going to replicate my card, how you can nicely get these images all ready to go. Now, I do decide to only use 3 flowers for my card, so I pull one out for a future card, and I have my 3 flowers ready to go, and I set them aside for later. Now I'm going to pull in 2 panels of Sweetheart cardstock and some Pucker Up ink. The panels are A2 size is the largest, and then the smallest is 3 3/4 of an inch by 5 inch. And this is going to allow for some nice framing work that we're going to get later on in our card making process. I very lightly ink blend the edges of the smaller of the 2 panels to get a nice discoloration with that Pucker Up ink. You can really see how that little bit of ombre on the corners helps it a lot. And what I also want to do is pull in some of the smaller detail stamps from the Wildflower stamp set. Using a small acrylic block, I am just going to begin stamping out a little bit of a background pattern. This is almost a create your own pattern paper sort of moment that's going to give some really fun detail to our final card. So I'm using one of the larger petite flowers that are included as a detail stamp, and I want to stamp them out so that they're sort of in a bit of a random assortment, and they also have a lot of breathing room in between that I can fill in with other smaller stamps, and then also, spoiler alert, some splattering later on in our card. I'm going to move on to a smaller image. This is almost like a starburst flower of sorts, and I'm going to stamp that in the same Pucker Up ink. We're only going to use that Pucker Up color for the stamping, and I'm going to arrange that onto our panel that we've ink blended. And then lastly, I have an even smaller little starburst of flowers that I'm going to stamp and put on my card. Now, the Pucker Up ink isn't directly associated with the suggested color palette for this set. It's actually just a darker tone of the Sweetheart family. Sweetheart is one of the recommended colors, which is the color of our cardstock. Pucker Up is just a little bit darker, but because Sweetheart is in the color family, I thought it would work really nicely. Now, using some Glitz Shimmer, I am going to take a clean acrylic block and I'm going to just put a little bit onto here. A little bit of the shimmer does go a long way, and then I end up picking it up with a clean watercolor brush and splattering it onto my card. I do put my hand down to sort of block any excess splattering. If I had grabbed my splatter box, that would be a perfect opportunity to do so, but alas, it was a little too far, and I decided I'd just put my hand out to sort of block it. So once I have all of my splatter from my shimmer taken care of, I grab my heat gun just to help set all of it into place so that I can proceed forward with crafting without the fear of these beautiful little shimmer spots smudging it all. Once I'm satisfied with how everything has dried onto my panel, I'm going to arrange the 3 wildflowers that we've prepared, and then once I'm happy with the general arrangement, I begin the process of getting them adhered down onto our panel. I'm going to adhere the 2 that are on the side, so not the center, the other 2 first, and then I'm going to use liquid adhesive to put them onto the panel. Normally, when working with focal images like this, I like to use a foam tape because that gives these a really nice pop. We are going to use foam tape in a different way later on in the project, and I was afraid using them in addition to foam with these flowers was going to be way too much dimension for this card. I do try to be a little mindful about when you put cards in the mail, not making them overly 3D, but at the end of the day, I want them to fit nicely into an envelope as well, and I did think that it would be a little problematic. With all of my flowers into place, I do trim off the excess because I don't want them to sort of overlap outside of the card. So I trim them using my scissors, but I do keep track of all of my little trim bits because I like to use these to incorporate into my card to make it look like things are even more overlapping and that the scene continues on beyond what you can see just on the card itself. So this is going to help give the illusion by using some of these trimmed off bits that there are even more flowers that are just not part of this panel and were trimmed off. So I'm going to arrange some excess petals and some excess leaves to make it look like everything is sort of one beautiful wildflower scene. So I just carefully sort of use liquid adhesive, putting all of that into place, and then once I'm happy with this, I will trim off the excess once again and move on to my sentiment portion of my card. Now, I decided to use the sentiment "miss you," but I didn't like that it was in a straight line for my specific card, and I thought it would look really cool if it sort of curved around the flowers. So I picked up the sentiment with my Misty Door, and I'm going to kind of curve the sentiment a little bit and see if I can get it positioned nicely so that it'll curve around the flowers for my card. So I sort of keep going back and forth, just sort of slightly modifying it, and once I'm happy with the position of the "miss you" sentiment, then we're going to be able to stamp it into place. I'm going to use blackjack ink to do this. I do love the blackjack color. It's one of my favorite neutrals because I love that it can be used as black intended, but because it is just a little bit lighter, I think it's a very elegant touch to have it be that dark gray color. When I'm happy with how my sentiment is nice and impressed, I'm going to use some foam tape on the back of this panel, and then this is going to help give this panel a little bit of lift with our cards. So I'm going to put about 4 long strips onto the back of this panel, making sure that it's sort of all within the panel itself, that you're not going to see any excess, and then I am going to use some liquid adhesive on the strips to make it even easier to add to our A2 size Sweetheart cardstock panel we prepared earlier in this project. I'm going to put this panel as centered as I possibly can. That liquid adhesive is going to give me a little bit more wiggle room time to get this nicely in place, and once I'm satisfied with the placement, I'm going to press everything down, lock it into place, and then I'm ready to move on to the next portion of our card making. Using an A2 size card base that I've prepared, I'm going to put some liquid adhesive on the back of our card panel, and this will just make it go really nicely on top of that side fold A2 card base that I've already prepared. I always kind of default to a side base for my card bases where it's scored on the side. If you like a top fold base, you can definitely go with that. Whatever fits your boat with what you prefer to do. Now I'm pulling in the party yellow enamel dots to add a little bit of embellishment for our card to sort of finish it out. I love that you get 3 different types of yellows to use. I love that they also coordinate with some of our favorite party yellow colors from Catherine Pooler Designs, and I want to arrange them onto our card front so that these don't overwhelm the front of the card, just sort of give it a little bit of flair, and also pull in the yellow tiara color that we have from all of our flowers as well. So I'm putting them into place. I end up using only a total of 5. I like to work in odd numbers and cluster some of them together when possible, and my card is fully completed. I think that this Miss You card is just so darn sweet, and I can't wait to send it off to a friend that I just can't wait to see sometime soon. I hope that this card provides you with some fun inspiration for how you can use the brand new Petals and Purrs collection from Catherine Pooler Designs for your very own card making. I do have all of the products used today linked in the description below for your shopping convenience, so be sure to check them out and snag your favorites before they sell out. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. If you haven't yet already, be sure to like and subscribe for future card inspiration. Thanks again for stopping by, everybody, and happy crafting. Goodbye.